Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's Mark from PowerSonic. You'll see behind me here we've got another array up here. This one is a really interesting prospect. We're across a few different orientations. We're maxing out our mppts in our Sigenergy inverter, and we're also forward thinking towards a heat pump. Before we get into any of that, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to our customers here. They have really looked after us all week with drinks and lunch. You've been an absolute pleasure to work for, and we are not ungrateful. So from myself, Ollie, Matty and Nathan, thank you very, very much. And I hope this installation has made you happy and you are set for decades to come, powering your home from sunshine. If you are a consumer, like our customers here, looking for a solar system on your home, please head to the description alongside wherever you're watching this, and you'll be able to follow a link over to our website, fill in a contact form, and it'd be an absolute pleasure to submit a proposal for you to consider as well. But without any further ado, I'm going to spin you around and I'll show you what we've got both on the roofs and how we put lots of this together, and the inverter and such as well. So you'll see here up on the roof we've got two different aspects here. So we're going to have two in landscape on this roof, and that is south facing, and then we're going to have four in portrait with two in landscape on top of it. Now if we drop these panels down to fit two in portrait up the top, that would have still fit. However, we'd have lost a panel off the bottom here because the roof's a bit of a weird shape. There's like a corner missing out of it. I'll show you in a second. And just to say a huge thank you to the customer for looking after us on this one with food and drinks all the way through this project. You're absolute legends, and we're really grateful for you looking after us in the way you have with hot drinks and food. And you can see there we've got this little corner missing here, which is why we've just pushed the panels up to get four in portrait on the bottom. The guys are on the other side, so we'll zoom around there up the scaff and have a look at what they're up to. But so far so good on this one. It's coming together quite nicely. We will jump up on this side and take a look as well, but for the minute the ladder has been taken away for safety reasons. We always try and leave the decks inaccessible when we're not going to be working and we're about to be going home. So we'll jump up there and show you that another time. So again, we are on with this one with the vol case. Ollie and Nathan have been busy on these two roofs, and they're just finishing off this one on this side. It is a bit of a tricky one because we've got a gas flue which is coming out. There's going to be a heat pump on this, and the chimney up here and next door shaded onto this aspect. I'm not going to spin you around and show you, but trust me, there's a big build in there. And again, with the vol case, as we showed on the last video, you get your different ways of mounting the rails, both in vertical and horizontal, and you can also slide them along. You see we've got the two rails in and an extra row of hooks, so just that top row to do, and then that's this roof buttoned up. We have got Ollie with us on this one from Zinc Electrical. Don't think we've shown Ollie before on the channel, but he's maybe going to be working with us on a few jobs over the summer, and based up in York, Ollie? Yeah, so if anyone's looking for solar installer up in the York area, you're spoilt for choice, and we're all the best looking ones up there as well, aren't we, Nathan? Yeah, he sounds convincing. So yeah, this one's coming along nicely. Hopefully tomorrow we'll get the panels on, and a nice roof to work on.
It's been good, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Wasting no time on this. So we'll zoom back and have a look when the panels are down, and we'll show you what this one looks like, but coming together well at the minute. So here you can see our 10 kilowatt Sige and Store stack, and this is outside. We've got a 10 kilowatt inverter with 16 kilowatt hours of storage. We have braced underneath the decking to take the weight, and it's secured back to the wall. We've also got our AC and DC isolators around there. As you'll see, we are within 1 metre of the doorway. However, this property's full of doors and windows all the way around, and wherever we were to site it, we would have that challenge. The customer did inquire about fitting this in the front hall, but that is the main escape route from the house at the bottom of the stairs, and it didn't feel right to position it there, even with smoke detection. So we've opted for the outdoor location. Interestingly, with the PAS, as I understand it, this inverter and battery system could actually go the other side of this wall on the inside because it's a dining room. However, I think it's infinitely safer on the outdoor wall, and I think this is just one of the nuances in the PAS that's been brought forward, that there will be some tweaks that are needed to allow these systems to be sited in homes. We're going to have this challenge particularly in terrace property and detached dwellings where there is windows, doors all the way around the property, or neighbouring fences as we've got on this one. And yeah, it's just one of those where, you know, if you're going to realistically fit these en masse in homes around the UK, we need a bit more flexibility in the places we can install them. But this came up nice, and you can see here we've got our isolation points for the AC and the DC. We've looped out for the strings into the inverter on this side, and then we've got our 2 PV strings coming up for the split aspect roofs, so the south and the west roof, and then we've got the bigger array on the east facing roof across 2 strings coming into this isolator as well. Nicely cleated up and evenly spaced off the wall. The customer's going to put an enclosure around this as well for some added weatherproofing and to keep it a bit better protected from the elements, even though all of this equipment is IP66, 67 rated. But it has an extra benefit of weatherproofing, always comes in, and you're only going to increase the lifespan of a product by doing that. So that's the customer's objective there. Just to say, with the isolation points, we've got the Proteus one here, which is IP67, and again we've glanded into the bottom sides on all of these with compression glands, so there's no moisture ingress. This is one of your I always get BW, CW mixed up, but this is one of your outdoor glands where there's like a secondary clamp on the bottom to weather seal onto the armour as well. So that's been done. You need to give these a little wipe down. And again, with the IMO isolators, these can break 2 strings in one, which is handy, especially when you're in a outdoor area and you're trying to keep things as neat as possible. You don't want 4 isolation points, it just starts to look a bit messy. But as I've said before, lots on the content, we need these for safety, both when the customer's doing maintenance or cleaning the panels, especially with this being a bungalow, and also for any kind of maintenance for installers, window cleaners, those kind of things, or if the inverter needs to be worked on and removed. You don't want to be relying on the MC4s. In an outdoor environment, they could become brittle, they could become damaged, and if your isolation is removing them from the inverter, even if it isn't running, there could still be a few 100 volts sat there. So for me, you want to have that controlled within an isolator. We wouldn't even think of omitting the AC isolation local to the equipment for maintenance and safety, and we certainly shouldn't be doing that for the DC either. But let's move on with the video and see how all of this is coming together. And our cable routes kind of track along, and then we're up into the soffits and then away through the loft space to the panels, which are just the other side of this roof here. And a nice neat result with the old PV Ultras, so we're not making a mess of things with conduit or singles running through. And we've also brought our cat cable, if you can see there, through the middle of the cleats, so that's secured nice and neatly as well. Happy with that, it's nice, neat and tidy. The gas meter and pipes all going to be going soon anyway. Customers in the process, we said, are getting a heat pump, so as soon as that's happened, this will all be removed and a bit more real estate here. It was a location we considered for the battery, however the back gate opens this way and there's the hose pipe, water taps. It's just a busy area. And obviously the gas is here presently, so we ruled that one out. It was the only other realistic location we had, and in the end we've gone for what we've gone for. But let us know what you think in the comments around that. So our gateway is going in a very handy area because we've got the main intake down there all coming in, and the gateway is going on top of it. There was already some trunking in this corner, so we've popped some 50x50 trunking in for our 10mm 3-core steel wire armour submain going off to the battery system. We've also got our tap cable running between the CCA and the TIGO tap which lives on the roof, and we've also got our comms cable between the Sigenergy store and the gateway. Popping out the side of here in our green colour for green energy, we've got 2 Ethernet ports. We're lucky that the router is right here with us. Landed that into the end cap, as you can see there, and that is for the tap CCA connectivity and also the gateway to connect into the Ethernet port as well. We've got our tails and submains all in on this end. If I can open it, I'll show you inside. So here, as always, we've got the 2 contactors. One does the grid, one does the smart port. We've got our grid input here, which brings the supply from the meter, and then we've got our house loads coming off on this port. We've got our SPD power supply here. This one will be getting changed for a C6 tomorrow for the TIGO tap, And then we've got our 2 inverter ports here, which are retained. The customer is getting a heat pump, and that is going to go into the smart port when it is connected. As you can see here, we've got the tap power supply, which was popped on the DIN rail here. That then runs off to power the TIGO tap, and then we've got our, the CCA, and then we've got our comms cable to the tap, which runs off from here, basically carrying RS485 and pos and neg, 24 volts, I believe, to the taps. I think you can run the single tap on 12 volts, but if you've got more than one, it needs to be 24, which is what these power supplies are. I have heard some consumers say they've managed to power these over PoE, but I think that still involves breaking out the LAN cable into these terminals here. It's one we can maybe do some investigation work on at some stage. We've also got our neutral earth bond link in. We've got our backup electrode in there as well, and we've also got our earth going off to the Sigenergy stack, and also our mains grid earth connected in here. So there's 2 chains of thought with this. You can just bring an electrode straight into it, but if you do that, sometimes you can end up with a potential difference between this point and your main earthing terminal when you're in island mode. And also your electrode gives you a backup function when you're on grid, so we tend to always tie them into the main earthing terminal and then just link this out to that. So when you end up off grid, your neutral earth bond is done from the main earthing bar basically, and everything is kind of linked together as it would be with your TNCS system. There may be better and different ways of setting it up, but that's the one we're comfortable with, and it seems to be the one that most other installers are opting for as well. You can see it on the schematic where it kind of breaks it down with this neutral earth bond relay and how all of that ties in as the contactors work their magic. But that's kind of it with the gateway. So we've still kept the stuffers, and again that is really just to secure the cables, although they're kind of in the trunking anyway. It made sense to us to try and keep those, if I can show you them. So they will at least secure the cables, and the thinking was if anyone's kind of working on the consumer unit, changing it in the future, and they snag the cables, they're not just going to rip out with no one noticing or form a loose connection. They've got a bit of cable restraint by retaining the glands. So that's why we've taken that approach on that one. And yeah, pretty straightforward. Otherwise, we've shown these loads on the channel, so if you want to see how the gateways work in specific, you can. And once we've got this powered up, we'll show you. Just to mention the comms on here again, so that's the Ethernet, and that's the link to the Sigenergy. You can use some of these pushing terminals, so if you end up with an EV charger and you're looking for an Ethernet port to go from, you can use your RS485 comms to achieve that. But you're best off, if you can, by utilising the FE1 and FE2 port on the gateway, and also the 2 ports on the Sigenergy stack itself to get your connectivity. But sometimes where the equipment ends up sited, it's not always doable. And you can also bring everything back to like a central router, and it'll form its own little network through that as well. Okay, so we're up on this roof. The guys have finished, and what a cracking job they have done as well. This was a tricky roof space to fill. I'll come back to speak about that in a minute. But first up, the panels. These are the Trina bifacials that we use a lot on the channel. We have got the Van der Valk Ace mounting system again, our PES fix mesh with all the critter clips that you need to hold it in place. And this aspect here is southeast facing. This aspect here is southwest facing. And we've got 2 of those Trina panels on here. Now with the Sigenergy kit and its 4 mppts, it's really useful on this system because we're using all 4. These 2 panels are on their own MPPT. So because the Sige inverter will start generating from 60 volts, and because these Trina panels pump out 52 volts-ish under standard test conditions, we have got well over that for these 2 panels on their own string. So they're sat there on a string. These, because they're on a slightly different orientation, are on their own string as well. These are 6 panels, and they are, again, same, all PES fixed up, looking beautiful. We suggested a few different layouts on this because it is an awkward roof shape. If I show you this corner here that we're missing, that was what kind of thwarted a lot of the designs we did. I ummed and ahed on this a lot with the proposal and came up with a few different variations on layout, trying to get as much out of this roof as we could. And my preferred option in the end was to go for these 3 lower down. My preferred option isn't what was installed. Basically bring 3 of these portrait ones down a bit, which meant we had to lose this one off the corner because it would have been in the valley, and to then have a central one in portrait off the top of that, which would have given us 4, and a bit of an outlier over here for 5. But they would have all been in portrait, and I always prefer them in the same orientation. Maybe that's just my OCD and it's a bit weird. We've had customers who aren't fussed and they do look absolutely fine. I'll show you from the street. There wasn't enough space up here for a portrait panel between the Velux and the edge, not without basically touching the edge of the roof, so well outside the limits of what MCS was defined as acceptable. So we couldn't go for that. The Veluxes were tight on space, we couldn't get two in portrait between there, but we could obviously, as you can see, squeeze one in landscape. So one of my other options was 3 in landscape down the middle here. Then there was enough space to fit another one in landscape off to this side, which would have given us 4. There wasn't quite enough space to get into the valley for a 5th one there, so again we would have had a bit of an outlier over there for 5. And then the final option, which I'd sort of floated with the customer prior, and Ollie, who's been working with us, suggested as well, because it was a way of getting 6 panels in there, was to do these 4 in portrait, where we just nudge up a little bit at the bottom, so we're not near this edge here. If we sat them lower, we'd be too close to that edge. And then we could pop 2 in landscape, 1 between the Veluxes and 1 just off to the side there, and it all kind of ties and pieces together. We've still got this little corner here, but obviously there's no space for a panel in portrait, landscape or otherwise. There's not enough space down the bottom here for a landscape panel either, not without oversaling the gutter. We couldn't go any higher at the top because we'd be having to mess with a wet ridge, and even in doing so we'd kind of be touching the ridge and touching the gutter. I don't really like to do that. It's just too full, and if you get some water running off when you go in sort of 3-4 panels high, you're just going to spill straight onto the floor below and end up causing an issue, so we didn't want to do that. And again, on this side we've got this sort of dead space here, but there's not enough room for one in landscape, there's not enough room for one in portrait. Just over the top there we've got another Velux, so we couldn't put one in over there. And with the space we've got, that kind of has worked out the best it can. Overall we have got 8 panels on this side, southeast, southwest facing, and they're pumping some really good numbers, so that's nice to see. And over on the other side, which I'll take you to show you, we've got 17 panels which are north-east facing. It's more east than north, to be fair. The house shape, there's kind of, this is the original bungalow, I assume, and then there's this sort of hipped extension, which has gone on to make it come out and give us these different elevations and aspects. But when we go around there and have a look, you'll see a bit more what I mean. That maybe gives you a better view from afar, trying to maximise the roof space that was available to us. And overall, I think that looks absolutely fine. Obviously, once the scaffold's gone, it'll look better. But the customer has now got those 8 panels on the south side of the property, trying to generate as much as possible as we can through those peak lunchtime periods. And yeah, just a shame about that little corner and the Veluxes, but sometimes you're just doing your best to try and get as much up there as you can, and maybe there was a different style of layout that could have squeezed an extra panel in there, but we played around with this between ourselves a lot, and we don't think so. So you'll see on this northeast side of the roof we have got 17 panels. Again, we've got our pest fix bird guard on there, so we're all secured up from any critters from getting under there. We've got our Volk mounting system, and we've got our Trina all black bifacial panels. This side we've had to set where we are to keep a little bit of a distance between that chimney up there to allow for access if any of the lead flashing needs something doing to it, and try and keep a bit away for the shading side, but also we're working in the limits of trying to keep 300 off the edge of that gutter line there as well, which we have done. And the reason for that is if the array collects lots of water, I think if I've showed the other side first, I'll have mentioned this already, but we're trying to avoid that spilling past the gutters and out into the property. So you see there, we're all good to go. There is a missing panel, we'll come to that in a minute. The guys have done a sterling job up here. It's all nice and secured down. Everything's in place. We've given the roof the appropriate care and attention. I think we had 1 broken tile on this one. The customer had the roof cleaned prior to our work and carried out a bit of maintenance on it, so it was already in pretty good order. We've swept down the roof, and we're just going to scoop out what's left in these gutters in a little while. But you can see here we've got our missing panel, and this is the gas boiler flue, and normally we wouldn't set our panels quite so close to that. We'd leave a little bit more room to allow for access for maintenance, but knowing that this is coming out, we've wanted to set it so the array is easiest to work with down the road. There's an imminent heat pump on here. Obviously once that chimney is taken away, this bottom panel will have to come out, but that's an easy removal. There's then access to take that away, tile back in, and fit the 2 panels back into position. We've left the MC4s accessible. It does give you a view of the securing of the cables onto the rail, so we've often discussed that before, but you can see here we've got that in place. One of the things you need to try and do with your array cabling is keep your pos and neg together so you don't form induction loops. And you can see there the guys have done this on this one. You basically take your pos and neg together, and then run your string back. We'll maybe show you that on a video because it's harder to explain than it is when you see it. And we've got the appropriate space off the edge there as well. So these again, we've got 17 panels on this side, really good size array, and it's northeast facing, more towards the east than the north, so it's not true sort of north-south to the other side. The other panels are literally over that ridge there in their split orientation. But yeah, they've come up nice. Ollie, Matty, Nathan, top job. And as always, we want to make sure we pass this over to the customer in a good and safe state for the long term, making sure we're using the appropriate fixings. We've got our clamps in the right position for the panels, and again that varies from manufacturer to manufacturer, so you need to make sure you're working with that. And sometimes, you know, in the best will in the world, you can't always attain perfection with that depending on where the roof timbers are, and you just have to adjust the PA value of your system. The panels will vary if you wander outside those clamping zones, so you just need to pay account to that. And generally, with a good quality mounting system and panel, you're going to be okay in the UK. These things end up in some very remote and extreme areas, and we're pretty lucky here to have a fairly stable environment, and these panels will be happy up here for decades to come. So you can see our inverter all labelled up for the battery sticker that needs to be on there. Now on and generating, our points of isolation all in the on position, and this system is now pumping out lots of usable power with our 16 kilowatt hours of storage, the 10 kilowatt inverter, which is really forward thinking towards the heat pump and this stack potentially growing. Combined with that nice large solar array, we're going to get some really good numbers out of this through the course of the whole year, which I think is really exciting, and the customer can now enjoy this for years to come. So you'll see the battery there between the two door spaces, and this was a tricky one because the house is surrounded by doors, windows, neighbouring properties. Customer, as I said earlier on in this video, was considering putting this in the hall, and I've showed you that isn't a suitable place. This was the best of the options available. It's one of those things we're working with the new PAS document. We all want to try and make sure we satisfy that, but it is a little bit too restrictive, especially in outdoor areas. We could have mounted this inside, just the other side of that wall, and there would have been no issue in terms of the PAS, so long as we attached smoke detection and such. However, these doors are not forming part of the main escape route for the property. There is other exit points, and for us it's absolutely fine sited in the area that it is. But do let us know what you think in the comments. As always, we raise these kind of discussions for wider debate and to learn and help each other going forward. But for us, this is a perfectly safe place. The customer's got easy access and maintenance to it. They're building a nice little timber enclosure to go around it as well, to give it some extra weatherproofing and protection, and also to make it look a little aesthetically neater in the back garden here. This is a north-facing wall as well. That's another consideration with these. We should be trying to avoid those south-facing aspects and make sure we're giving it the best prospect of longevity beyond just the warranty window. So you'll see here we have our gateway, and we've trunked this up as best we can, so it's sat on top of the meter box here with our tails running through, but the trunking is really just to neaten everything away so we don't have any cables on show. I think the customer's building a cupboard on the front of this as well. There was existing trunking down there, but we've got a new form of trunking we needed for our submain and comms cables and everything. So that's all in there. We've got our Ethernet cables coming out the stuffer on the side there, and that's for the tap and also the Sigenergy store system. If we look inside the gateway, be able to see the guys have fully labelled that up. So we've got our battery, inverter, and the backup port, the SPD, TIGO hub. We've got our smart port that's spare for when the heat pump gets installed, and that can be utilised for that. It gives monitoring and also the ability to turn it on and off basically. So that is pretty much the gateway in a nutshell. We've shown these a lot on the channel before. The basic concept is if there's a power cut, so your grid feed essentially into this port disappears, these contactors swing over and your system can island, keep the power on from your battery system, and you wouldn't even notice, aside from the app notifying you about it. And these are big chunky units. We often get asked about the noise from these, so I'll go quiet and let you have a little listen, see if it picks it up. So there's a very, very quiet hum. It is just the contactor. They all do it. All these systems with gateways have some element of noise. And once the lid's on there, it's virtually silent, to be fair. This was the area we were considering, or the customer had asked for maybe the potential of the battery going in, but this is the main exit from the property, and the stairs are just behind me as well. So that was a no-no, even with smoke detection. But yeah, it's good to see the guys have got this all labelled up, looking nice and neat. and I'll take you to go and have a look in the loft and show you how we tidy up some of the cables in there as well, because that was another question we've had recently, and we can talk about that up there. So this is one of the nicest lofts I've ever been in. It's actually all boarded and very clean and tidy, which is great. And the guys have made a great effort up here to get these cables secured. So you can see they're all nicely cleated. They're not left flapping in free air as we've shown on other systems we've gone to inspect on the channel before. You're not going to bang into them with boxes. They're not going to be pulled. They're unlikely to be chewed and nibbled upon because you've taken the effort to try and get them up out of the way. And they're also labelled. Now the PV Ultra has the label that's required on the actual sheath anyway, but you can see we've popped a few on, especially where they're split apart here, so it's blatantly obvious what they are. And also as they run up and over, if I can get into shot, you can see over there and over there as well. So if anyone's looking at that wondering what it is, it's obvious. You can see down there we've got the Kerpex going out through the roof as well. So these inner conductors, they're not single insulated, they are still double insulated, so they meet the requirements to just pass out onto the roof, but obviously with the tiles they're quite abrasive, so you want them in a protective covering, so then abrasion's not going to form on any of your insulation basically. And you can see it's gone through the lap in the felt as well, so we're not puncturing any of this felt. It's all in pretty good condition, the felt on the underside of the tiles, which is nice to see. And this other string here, because the PV Ultra is 4-core, goes off to do the other aspect. So just the other side of this roof here is the 2 panels. That one goes off to that string of 6, and at the other side of the house we've got our PV cables running up and away as well. And overall I think that's a really nice job, and it's good to see the guys putting the care and attention into these little details. They're the things that we really try and do to a good standard, to try and make sure these things have a prospect of lasting as long a time as possible and remaining safe, because at the end of the day people go to bed in these places at night and you don't want any of these things to be causing a problem. So I thought we'd end this video in one of the unglamorous parts of the project, and that's up in the loft space. Lots of customers never go up in there and even look at them, but it really is important for your cablings to be secured. You never know if any rodents are going to come nibbling. If you chuck a Christmas tree up there, it can become tangled up in it, all sorts of stuff. So we try and make that effort and labelling them so they're easy to find and understand for any future electricians or roofers coming to do maintenance on the property. They know what's there and they can deal with it at that stage. And just say if you're a customer who wants to work with an installer who really does put quality and safety at the forefront of what they're doing, we believe we offer exceptional value, and we've tried our very best to do that for this customer on this project. There'll be a link in the description where you can go off and get in touch with us to put your system proposal forward and see if you fancy working with us guys as well. A final massive thank you to our customers on this one for looking after us so well through the course of this project. We hope you are happy with what's been delivered, and I believe the customer might be starting their own YouTube channel evaluating how this system performs in the months and years ahead. And if they do, I'll pop a link to their channel in alongside this video as well, where you can go off and watch it and see how all of this behaves itself going forward, because that's often one of the interesting things consumers want to see, and there's loads of great channels out there doing things like that. Gary Does Solar is one of my favourites, where he really delves into the numbers and figures and whatnot, so he will hopefully be joining the crew doing stuff like that. Otherwise, thank you all very much for watching. If you've got any questions around the wider install and what we've been up to, drop them in below. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next one.